Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome, my dear scholars, to the study. I'm glad to see you all here, and I see we have a raid right off the bat. Welcome, raiders! Hello there, Scruffed DOTT. Hello there, Anime Veteran 93. Hello there, Crusader Corrupted. Hello there, Julian. Hello there, Private Maverick. Hello, Firefly. Hello, 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 everybody who's come here to the study. It's wonderful to have you all here on this fine evening, or morning, or afternoon, or wherever you happen to be. I hope you're all doing well. Let me move the reading table up a bit. I think it got pushed down, unfortunately. Oh, my goodness gracious. My goodness. So, how is everyone this fine time? It's been a little bit of while since we. A little bit of while. It's been a little bit since we've done reading streams. Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Scruffed DOTT. I hope I'm getting that right. Welcome, welcome, fellow scholar. I'm glad to have you here. Julian 20, fabulous as usual. Private Maverick, I'm doing pretty good. Good. Dr. Zadie, I'm doing pretty well. Anime Veteran, pulling a bit of overtime at work cause deadlines, but I'm alright. Oh, well, I hope you'll be alright. I know sometimes work, especially overtime, can be a little bit rough, but I hope things will be turning out very well. Crusader Corrupted, yes, it has been a little while. Yes, it has. Um, Ever since my tiny little itty bitty hiatus, I've been dying to read something to all you fine scholars. And tonight we'll actually be doing a book again. I think the last stream I did for a reading stream was fairy tales. So it'll be nice to get back to a longer chapter book. Scrubbed gonna be comfy. Well, good. Good, that's the idea. For you to be comfy and cozy and to relax. The point of these reading streams are to bring a little bit of relaxation in your life. So if you have a hot or cold beverage, don't be afraid to drink it during the stream. I must hydrate myself in preparation. For those who are new to my reading streams, I don't simply read the books, as it were. I do the voices as well. So I try to give each character a unique voice if I can. Sometimes I do repeat voices, unfortunately. But it's a little bit more than just reading. It's almost acting if you want. It's a presentation. So tonight, I should probably get to it. Tonight, or today, or whatever, we will be reading Sky Island by L. Frank Baum. For those of you who were lucky enough to be at my last novel reading stream, um, Anime Veteran acting with just your voice, what an idea! Yes, yes, indeed. For those of you, excuse me. Oh my goodness, dry air. For those of you who were lucky enough to be at one of my last novel reading streams, Sky Island is the sequel to the Sea Fairies and features Little Trot from California as well as good old one-legged sailor Captain Bill. And in the Sea Fairies, they encountered mermaids and traveled through the ocean depths and encountered an evil underwater wizard. I believe his name was Zog. And met the kindly sea serpent Kinanko. And Sky Island was the sequel that L. Frank Baum wrote for it. If you've probably heard of L. Frank Baum, he was the writer of the Wizard of Oz books. If you want to hear more of those books, fellow reader Sophia Ignacy has been reading them one after another. I believe she is on the Emerald City of Oz. So do take a peek in there, on that. Sky Island is one of his non-Oz books, at least at first, but it does feature a fair amount of Oz characters in it. I should probably get to the story itself. But that's a little introduction to prepare you for this story. So, my dear scholars, are you ready to listen to this tale of adventure above the clouds, as it were? Julian 20 is so ready. Good to hear it. Yes. Anime adventure, let's do it! Yes, alright. Alright, ready to rumble? I don't think we're gonna rumble, but we will enjoy a bit of reading. Alright then. Um, so let me part the curtains. And my dear scholars, if you have a hot or cold beverage, don't be afraid to drink it. Relax, sit back, and let us enjoy L. Frank Baum's Sky Island. The full title actually is Sky Island, being the further exciting adventures of Trot and Cap Bill after their visit to the Sea Fairies, by L. Frank Baum, Royal Historian of Oz. Introduction. A little talk to my readers. With the Sea Fairies, my book for 1911, I ventured into a new field of fairy literature, and to my delight the book was received with much approval by my former readers, many of whom have written me that they liked Trot almost as well as Dorothy. As Dorothy was an old friend, and Trot a new one, I think this is very high praise for Cap'n Bill's little companion. Cap'n Bill is also a new character who seems to have won approval, and so both Trot and the old sailor are again introduced in the present story, which may be called the second of the series of adventures of Trot and Cap'n Bill. But you will recognize some other acquaintances in Sky Island. Here, for instance, is Button Bright, who once had an adventure with Dorothy and Oz, and without Button Bright and his magic umbrella, you will see that the story of Sky Island could never have been written. As Polychrome, the Rainbow's daughter, lives in the sky, it is natural that Trot and Button Bright meet her during their adventures there. This story of Sky Island has astonished me considerably, and I think it will also astonish you. The Sky Country is certainly a remarkable fairyland, but after reading about it, I am sure you will agree with me that our old Mother Earth is a very good place to live upon, and that Trot and Button Bright and Cap'n Bill were fortunate to get back to it again. By the way, one of my little correspondents has suggested that I print my address in this book, so that the children may know where letters will reach me. I am doing this, as you see, and hope that many will write to me and tell me how they like Sky Island. My greatest treasures are these letters from my readers, and I am always delighted to receive them. L. Frank Baum, Oscott at Hollywood in California. Let me get another little drink just to prepare. Oh my goodness. See. Chapter 1. A Mysterious Arrival. "Hello," said the boy. "Hello," answered Trot, looking up surprised. "Where did you come from?" "Philadelphia," said he. "Dear me," said Trot, "you're a long way from home, then." "'Bout as far as I can get, in this country," the boy replied, gazing out over the water. "Isn't this the Pacific Ocean?" "Of course." "Why, of course?" he asked. "Because it's the biggest lot of water in all the world." "How do you know?" "Cap'n Bill told me," she said. "Who's Cap'n Bill?" "An old sailor man who's a friend of mine. He lives at my house, too. The White House you see over there on the bluff. Oh, is that your home? Yes, said Trot proudly. Isn't it pretty? It's pretty small, seems to me, answered the boy. But it's big enough for Mother and me, and for Cap'n Bill, said Trot. Haven't you any father? Yes, indeed. Captain Griffith is my father, but he's gone most of the time, sailing on a ship. You mustn't be a stranger in these parts, little boy. You must be a stranger in these parts, little boy, not to know about Captain Griffith, she added, looking at her new acquaintance intently. Trot wasn't very big herself, but the boy was not quite as big as Trot. He was thin, with a rather pale complexion, and his blue eyes were round and earnest. He wore a bloused waist, a short jacket, and knickerbockers. Under his arm he held an old umbrella that was as tall as he was. Its covering had once been of thick brown cloth, but the color had faded to a dull drab, except in the creases, and Trot thought it looked very old-fashioned and common. The handle, though, was really curious. It was of wood, and carved to resemble an elephant's head. The long trunk of the elephant was curved to make a crook for the handle. The eyes of the beast were small red stones, and it had two tiny tusks of ivory. The boy's dress was rich and expensive, even to his fine silk stockings and tan shoes, but the umbrella looked old and disrepute. "It isn't the rainy season now," remarked Trot with a smile. The boy glanced at his umbrella and hugged it tighter. "No," he said, "but umbrellas are good for other things, 'sides rain." "'Fraid of getting sunstruck?" asked Trot. He shook his head, still gazing far out over the water. "I don't believe this is bigger than any other ocean," said he. "I can't see any more of it than I can of the Atlantic." "You'll find out if you had to sail across it," she declared. "When I was in Chicago I saw Lake Michigan," he went on dreamily, "and it looked just as big as this water does." "Looks don't count with oceans," she asserted. "Your eyes can only see just so far, whether you're looking at a pond or a great sea." "Then it doesn't make any difference how big an ocean is," he replied. "What are those buildings over there?" pointing to the right, along the shore of the bay. "That's the town," said Trot. "Most of the people earn their living by fishing. The town is half a mile from here, and my house is almost half a mile the other way. So it's about a mile from my house to the town." The boy sat down beside her on the flat rock. "Do you like girls?" asked Trot, making room for him. "Not very well," the boy replied. "Some of them are pretty good fellows, but not many. The girls with brothers are bossy, and the girls without brothers haven't any go to 'em. But the world's full of both kinds, and so I try to take 'em as they come. They can't help being girls, of course." What a judgmental little kid. "Do you like boys?" "When they don't put on airs or get rough house," replied Trot. "My experiences with boys is that they don't know much, but think they do." I love this little dialogue between the two. So funny and cute. "That's true," he answered. "I don't like boys much better than I do girls, but some are all right. And you seem to be one of 'em." "Much obliged," laughed Trot. "You ain't so bad either. And if we don't both turn out worse than we seem we ought to be, if we don't both turn out worse than we seem we ought to be friends. Hello there, Kintron. Welcome! We've just started reading Sky Island. Little Trot has just met Button Bright. I think they actually haven't given the name. Oh goodness, sorry. Excuse me. He nodded, rather absently, and tossed a pebble into the water. Been to town? He asked. Yes, Mother wanted some yarn from the store. She's knitting Cap'n Bill a stocking. Doesn't he wear but one? That's all. Cap'n Bill has one wooden leg, she explained. That's why he don't sailor anymore. I'm glad of it, 'cause Cap'n Bill knows everything. I suppose he knows more than anyone else in all the world. Whew, said the boy. That's taking a good deal for granted. A one-legged sailor can't know much. Why not? Asked Trot a little indignantly. Folks don't learn things with their legs, do they? No, but they can't get around without legs to find out things. Quite the logic there. Cap'n Bill got round lively enough once when he had two meat legs, she said. He sailed to most every country on the earth and found out all that the people in 'em knew, and a lot besides. He was shipwrecked on a desert island once, and another time a cannibal king tried to boil him for dinner, and one day a shark chased him 7 leagues through the water, and... What's a league? Asked the boy. It's a distance, like a mile is, but a league isn't a mile, you know. What is it then? You'll have to ask Cap'n Bill. He knows everything. Not everything, objected the boy. I know some things Cap'n Bill don't know. If you do, you're pretty smart, said Trot. No, I'm not smart. Some folks think I'm stupid. I guess I am. But I know a few things that are wonderful. Cap'n Bill may know more than I do, a good deal more. But I'm sure he can't know the same things. Say, what's your name? I'm Mary Griffith, but everybody calls me Trot. Trot. It's a nickname I got when I was a baby, 'cause I trotted so fast when I walked, and it seems to stick. What's your name? Button Bright. How did it happen? How did what happen? Such a funny name. The boy scowled a little. Just like your own nickname happened, he answered gloomily. My father once said I was bright as a button, and it made everybody laugh, so they always called me Button Bright. What's your real name? She inquired. Saladin Paracelsus de Lambertine Evelyn von Smith. Guess I'll call you Button Bright, said Trotchus. She sighs, not laughing. Huh. Guess I'll call you Button Bright, said Trot, sighing. The only other thing would be salad, and I don't like salads. Don't you find it hard work to remember all your names? I don't try to, he said. There's a lot more of it, but I've forgotten the rest. Thank you, said Trot. Oh, here comes Cap'n Bill, as she glanced over her shoulder. Button Bright turned also, and looked solemnly at the old sailor who came stumping along the path towards them. Cap'n Bill wasn't a very handsome man. He was old, and not very tall, somewhat stout and chubby, with a round face, and a bald head and scraggly fringe of reddish whisker underneath his chin. But his blue eyes were frank and merry, and his smile like a ray of sunshine. He wore a sailor's shirt with a broad collar, a short pea jacket, and wide bottomed sailor trousers, one leg of which covered his wooden limb, but did not hide it. As he came pegging along the path, as he himself described his hobbling walk, his hands were pushed into his coat pockets, a pipe was in his mouth, and his black neck scarf was fluttering behind him in the breeze like a sable banner. Button Bright liked the sailor's looks. There was something very winning. There's a word you don't use much anymore. Very winning. Something jolly and carefree and honest and sociable about the ancient seaman that made him everybody's friend. So the strange boy was glad to meet him. Let me get a drink of water for Captain Bill's voice. "Well, well, Trot," he said, coming up. "Is this the way you hurry to town?"
"No, for I'm on my way back," said she. "I did hurry when I was going, Cap'n Bill, but on my way home I sat down here to rest and watch the gulls. The gulls seem awful busy today, Cap'n Bill, and then I found this boy."
Captain Bill looked at the boy curiously.
"Don't think as ever I saw him at the village," he remarked. "Guess as you're a stranger, my lad."
Button Bright nodded.
"Hain't walked the 9 mile from the railroad station, have ye?"
asked Captain Bill.
"No,"
said Button Bright. The sailor glanced around him.
"Don't see no wagon or no automobile?"
he added. A note here. Baum writes Captain Bill's words in stereotypical sailor dialect. So I'm trying my best to pronounce these words as clear as I can in the right tone. Excuse me.
"Don't see no wagon or no automobile," he added.
"No,"
said Button Bright.
"Catch a ride with someone?"
Button Bright shook his head.
A boat can't land here. The rocks is too thick and too sharp,"
continued Cap'n Bill, peering down toward the foot of the bluff on which they sat and against which the waves broke in foam.
"No," said Button Bright. "I didn't come by water."
Trot laughed.
"He must have dropped from the sky, Cap'n Bill!"
she exclaimed. Button Bright nodded very seriously.
"That's it,"
he said.
"Oh, an airship, eh?"
cried Cap'n Bill in surprise.
"I've heard tell o' them sky carriages. Something like flying automobiles, ain't they?"
"I don't know," said Button Bright. "I've never seen one."
Both Trot and Cap'n Bill now looked at the boy in astonishment.
"Now then, let me think a minute," said
the sailor reflectively.
"Here's a riddle for us to guess, Trot. He dropped from the sky, he says, and yet he didn't come in an airship. Riddle come ree. What can the answer be?"
Trot looked the boy over carefully. She didn't see any wings on him. The only queer thing about him was his big umbrella.
"Oh!"
she said suddenly, clapping her hands together.
"I know now."
"Do you?"
asked Cap'n Bill doubtfully.
"Then you're some smarter ner I am, mate."
"He sailed down with the umbrella," she cried. "He used his umbrella as a para."
"Shoot," said Cap'n Bill. "They're called parachutes, mate. But why, I can't say. Did you drop down in that way, my lad?" he asked the boy.
Yes," said Button Bright. "That was the way." "But how did you get up there?" asked Trot. "You had to get up in the air before you could drop down, and oh, Cap'n Bill! He says he's from Philadelphia, which is a big city way at the other end of America."
Are you? Asked the sailor, surprised. Button Bright nodded again.
"I ought to tell you my story," he said, "and then you'd understand, but I'm afraid you won't believe me, and—"
He suddenly broke off and looked toward the White House in the distance.
"Didn't you say you lived over there?"
he inquired.
"Yes," said Trot. "Won't you come home with us?" "I'd like to," replied Button Bright. "All right, let's go then," said the girl, jumping up.
The three walked silently along the path. The old sailor-man had refilled his pipe and lighted it again, and he smoked thoughtfully as he pegged along beside the children.
"Know anyone around here?"
No, that's Cap'n Bill. Ah, my goodness. Know anyone around here? He asked Button Bright.
"No one but you two,"
said the boy, following after Trot, with his umbrella tucked carefully underneath his arm. And you don't know us very well, remarked Cap'n Bill. Seems to me you're pretty young to be traveling so far from home, and among strangers. But I won't say anything more till we've heard your story. Then if you need my advice, or Trot's advice, she's a wise little girl for her size, Trot is, we'll freely give it, and be glad to help you."
"Thank you," replied Button Bright. "I need a lot of things, I'm sure, and perhaps advice is one of them."
Ah, for those who are wondering, Button Bright is not a new character. He was in The Road to Oz, the fifth, yes, the fifth book of the Wizard of Oz series. He's actually written to be kind of slightly older than he was in that book, just slightly, which is a funny thing given the next time we see him in the series. But I digress. We get another little drink. We'll move on to the next chapter. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Chapter 2: The Magic Umbrella. When they reached the neat frame cottage, which stood on a high bluff a little back from the sea and was covered with pretty green vines, a woman came to the door to meet them. She seemed motherly and good, and when she saw Button Bright, she exclaimed, "Goodness me! Who's this you've got, Trot?"
"It's a boy I've just found," explained the girl. He lives way off in Philadelphia." "Mercy sakes alive!" cried Mrs. Griffith, looking into his upturned face. "I don't believe he's had a bite to eat since he started. Ain't you hungry, child?" "Yes," said Button Bright. "Run, Trot, and get 2 slices o' bread and butter," commanded Mrs. Griffith. "Cut 'em thick, dear, and use plenty of butter." "Sugar on them?" asked Trot, turning to obey. No," said Button Bright. "Just bread and butter's good enough when you're hungry, and it takes time to spread sugar on. I've never heard of having sugar on bread with butter. It seems a little much, honestly." "We'll have supper in an hour," observed Trot's mother briskly, "but a hungry child can't wait a whole hour, I'm sure. What are you grinning at, Cap'n Bill? How dare you laugh when I'm talking? Stop it this minute, you old pirate, or I'll know the reason why." Firefly, it was normal at the time. Yulian 20. Oh, yes, it is wonderful. I've never heard of it. Dr. Zadium, you need to try that now, Matsu. I don't know. I will admit I don't have that much of a sweet tooth, really. I mean, I like sweet foods, but that seems a little excessive. "I didn't, Mum.
I didn't, Mum, said Cap'n Bill meekly. I only.
Stop right there, sir. How dare you speak when I'm talking? She turned to Button Bright, and her tone changed to one of much gentleness as she said, "Come in the house, my poor boy, and rest yourself. You seem tired out. Here, give me that clumsy umbrella."
No, please,
said Button Bright, holding the umbrella tighter. "Then put it in the rack behind the door," she urged. The boy seemed a little frightened.
I I'd rather keep it with me if you please,"
he pleaded.
Never mind, Cap'n Bill ventured to say. It won't worry him so much to hold the umbrella, Mum, as to let it go. I guess he's afraid he'll lose it. But it ain't any great shakes, to my notion. Why, see here, Button Bright. We've got half a dozen umbrellas in the closet. That's better nor yours.
"Perhaps," said the boy, "yours may look a heap better, sir, but I'll keep this one, if you please."
Kintron sounds like an early fairy bread. Oh, I've heard of fairy bread, but I don't know much about it. I'll have to look into that.
"Where did you get it?"
asked Trot, appearing just then with a plate of bread and butter.
It it belongs in our family,"
said Button Bright, beginning to eat and speaking between bites. "This umbrella has been in our family years and years and years, but it was tucked away up in our attic, and no one ever used it, 'cause it wasn't pretty."
Don't blame him much, remarked Cap'n Bill, gazing at it curiously. It's a pretty old-looking bumbershoot.
They were all seated in the vine-shaded porch of the cottage, all but Mrs. Griffith, who had gone into the kitchen to look after the supper, and Trot was on one side of the boy, holding the plate for him, while Cap'n Bill sat on the other side.
"It is old,"
said Button Bright.
"One of my great-great-grandfathers was a knight, an Arabian knight, and it was he who first found this umbrella." "An Arabian knight!" exclaimed Trot. "Why, that was a magic knight, wasn't it?"
"There's different sorts o' knights, mate," said the sailor, "and the knight Button Bright means ain't the same knight you mean. Soldiers used to be called knights, but that were in the Dark Ages, I guess, and likely not Button Bright's great-grandfather was that sort of a knight."
"But he said it was an Arabian knight," persisted Trot.
"Well, if he went to Araby, it's hard to say this word. If he went to Araby, or was born there, he'd be an Arabian Night, wouldn't he? The lad's grandfather were probably a foreigner, and yours and mine were too, Trot. If you go if you go back far enough, for Ameriky wasn't discovered in them days."
Oh, that is hard to say. It's really hard to do Cap'n Bill's words.
"There!" said Trot triumphantly. "Didn't I tell you, Button Bright, that Cap'n Bill knows everything?" "He knows a lot, I expect,"
soberly answered the boy, finishing the last slice of bread and butter, and then looking at the empty plate with a sigh. "But if he really knows everything, he knows about the magic umbrella, so I won't have to tell you anything about it."
"Magic!" cried Trot with big eager eyes. "Did you say magic umbrella, Button Bright?" "I said magic, but none of our family knew it was a magic umbrella till I found it out for myself. You're the first people I've told the secret to," he added, glancing into their faces rather uneasily. "Glory me!" exclaimed the girl, clapping her hands in ecstasy. "It must be just elegant to have a magic umbrella."
Cap'n Bill coughed. He had a way of coughing when he was suspicious.
"Magic," he observed gravely, "was once lying round loose in the world. That was in the Dark Ages, I guess, when the magic Arabian Nights was. But the light o' civilization has scared it away long ago, and magic's been a lost art since long before you and I was born, Trot.
I know that fairies still live,
Said Trot reflectively. She didn't like to contradict Cap'n Bill, who knew everything.
So do I,
Added Button Bright.
and I know there's magic still in the world, or in my umbrella anyhow. Tell us about it,
Begged the girl excitedly.
Well,
Said the boy.
I found it out all by accident. It rained in Philadelphia for 3 whole days, and all the umbrellas in our house were carried out by the family, and lost or mislaid, or something, so that when I wanted to go to Uncle Bob's house, which is at Germantown, there wasn't an umbrella to be found. My governess wouldn't let me go without one, and oh,
Said Trot.
do you have a governess?
Yes.
But I don't like her. She's cross. She said I couldn't go to Uncle Bob's because I had no umbrella. Instead, she told me to go in the attic and play. I was sorry about that, but I went up in the attic, and pretty soon I found in a corner this old umbrella. I didn't care how it looked. It was whole and strong and big, and would keep me from getting wet on the way to Uncle Bob's. So off I started for the car, but I found the streets awful muddy, and once I stepped in a mud hole way up to my ankles. Gee, I said, I wish I could fly through the air to Uncle Bob's. I was holding up the open umbrella when I said that, and as soon as I spoke, the umbrella began lifting me up into the air. I was awful scared at first, but I held on tight to the handle, and it didn't pull very much either. I was going pretty fast, for when I looked down, all the big buildings were sliding past me so swift that it made me dizzy. Before I really knew what had happened, the umbrella settled down and stood me on my feet at Uncle Bob's front gate. I didn't tell anybody about the wonderful thing that had happened, because I thought no one would believe me. Uncle Bob looked sharp at the thing and said,
Button Bright, how did your father happen to let you take that umbrella?
He didn't, I said. Father was away at the office, so I found it in the attic, and I just took it. Then Uncle Bob shook his head and said I ought to leave it alone. He said it was a family relic that had been handed down from father to son for many generations. But I told him my father had never handed it to me, though I'm his son. Uncle Bob said our family always believed that it brought him good luck to own this umbrella. He couldn't say why, not knowing its early history. But he was afraid that if I lost the umbrella, bad luck would happen to us. So he made me go right home to put the umbrella back where I got it. I was sorry Uncle Bob was so cross. I didn't want to go home yet, where the governess was crosser and he was. I wonder why folks get cross when it rains. But by that time it had stopped raining for a while anyhow, and Uncle Bob told me to go straight home and put the umbrella in the attic and never touch it again. When I was around the corner, I thought I'd see if I could fly as I had before. I'd heard of buffalo, but I didn't know just where it was. So I said to the umbrella, "Take me to Buffalo." Up in the air I went, and just as soon as I said it, and the umbrella sailed so fast that I felt as if I was in a gale of wind. It was a long, long trip, and I got awfully tired holding onto the handle. But just as I thought I'd have to let go, I began to drop down slowly. Then I found myself in the streets of a big city. I put down the umbrella and asked a man what the name of the city was, and he said, "Buffalo." "How wonderful!" gasped Trot.
Cab Bill kept on smoking and said nothing. Get another drink of water.
Have to keep hydrated when you're doing this many voices. Oh, hello there, Kurilenko. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you here. We are reading Sky Island. We are currently on Chapter 2. Button Bright is just telling us the history of the magic umbrella. Also, it looks like we have another new follower. Wirevern, welcome to our scholarly group. Glad to have you here. I'm glad all you dear scholars are here. I do these streams just for you.
It was magic, I'm sure, said Button Bright. It surely couldn't have been anything else. Perhaps,
Suggested Trot. Oh my goodness. Give me a second.
the umbrella can do other magic things.
No, said the boy.
I tried it. When I landed in Buffalo, I was hot and thirsty. I had 10 cents car fare, but I was afraid to spend it. So I held up the umbrella and wished I had an ice cream soda, but I didn't get it. Then I wished for a nickel to buy an ice cream soda with, but I didn't get that either. I got frightened. I was afraid the umbrella didn't have any magic left. So to try it, I said, "Take me to Chicago." I didn't want to go to Chicago, but that was the first place I thought of. And so I said it. Up again I flew, swifter than a bird, and I soon saw this was going to be another long journey. So I called out to the umbrella, "Never mind. Stop. I guess I won't go to Chicago. I've changed my mind, so take me home again." But the umbrella wouldn't. It kept right on flying, and I shut my eyes and held on. At last I landed in Chicago, and then I was in a pretty fix. It was nearly dark, and I was too tired and hungry to make the trip home again. I knew I'd get an awful scolding, too, for running away and taking the family luck with me. So I thought that as long as I was in for it, I'd better see a good deal of the country while I had the chance. I wouldn't be allowed to come away again, you know. No, of course not. I bought some buns and milk with my 10 cents, and then I walked around the streets of Chicago for a time, and afterwards slept on a bench in one of the parks. In the morning I tried to get the umbrella to give me a magic breakfast, but it won't do anything but fly. I went to a house and asked a woman for something to eat, and she gave me all I wanted and advised me to go straight home before my mother worried about me. She didn't know I lived in Philadelphia. That was this morning.
This morning? Exclaimed Cap'n Bill. Why, lad, it takes 3 or 4 days for the railroad trains to get to this coast from Chicago.
I know, replied Button Bright, but I didn't come on a railroad train. This umbrella goes faster than any train ever did. This morning I flew from Chicago to Denver, but no one there would give me any lunch. A policeman said he'd put me in jail if he caught me begging, so I got away and told the umbrella to take me to the Pacific Ocean. When I stopped, I landed over there by the big rock. I shut up the umbrella and saw a girl sitting on the rock, so I went up and spoke to her. That's all.
Oh, thank you for the follow, Kurilenko. Thank you so much, and welcome to our scholarly family.
Goodness me, said Trot. If that isn't a fairy story, I never heard one. If that isn't a fairy story, I never heard one. It is a fairy story, agreed Button Bright. Anyhow, it's a magic story. And the funny part of it is, it's true. I hope you believe me, but I don't know as I'd believe it myself, if it hadn't been me that it happened to. I believe every word of it, declared Trot earnestly.
As for me, said Cap'n Bill slowly, I'm going to believe it, too, by my... I have no idea what this word is. By my bee. By my bee. When I've seen the umbrella fly once.
Kintron. At least it didn't drop him in the ocean. That one specifically, that specific ocean, the Pacific Ocean. Yes, I think that would be awful. That would be a very short story. That would be a very short story for poor Button Bright.
You'll see me fly away with it,
Asserted the boy.
but at present it's pretty late in the day, and Philadelphia is a good way off. Do you suppose, Trot, your mother would let me stay here all night? Course she would, answered Trot. We've got an extra room with a nice bed in it, and we'd love to have you stay just as long as you want to. Wouldn't we, Cap'n Bill?
Right you are, mates, replied the old man, nodding his bald head. Whether the umbrella is magic or not, Button Bright is welcome.
Mrs. Griffith came out soon after, and seconded the invitation, so the boy felt quite at home in the little cottage. It was not long before supper was on the table, and in spite of all the bread and butter he had eaten, Button Bright had a fine appetite for the good things Trot's mother had cooked. Mrs. Griffith was very kind to the children, but not quite so agreeable towards poor Cap'n Bill. When the old sailor man at one time spilled some tea on the tablecloth, Trot's mother flew angry and gave the culprit such a tongue lashing that Button Bright was sorry for him. But Cap'n Bill was meek and made no reply.
He's used to it, you know,
whispered Trot to her new friend, and indeed Cap'n Bill took it all cheerfully and never minded a bit. Then it came Trot's turn to get a scolding. When she opened the parcel she had bought at the village, it was found she had selected the wrong color of yarn, and Mrs. Griffith was so provoked that Trot's scolding was almost as severe as that of Cap'n Bill's. Tears came to the little girl's eyes, and to comfort her, the boy promised to take her to the village next morning with his magic umbrella, so she could exchange the yarn for the right color. Trot quickly brightened at this promise, although Cap'n Bill looked grave and shook his head solemnly. When supper was over and Trot had helped with the dishes, she joined Button Bright and the sailor man on the little porch again. Dusk had fallen, and the moon was just rising. They all sat in silence for a time, and watched the silver trail that topped the crests of the waves far out to sea.
Oh, Button Bright, cried the little girl presently, I'm so glad you're going to let me fly with you way to town and back tomorrow. Won't it be fine, Cap'n Bill?
Don't know, Trot, said he. I can't figure how both o' you can hold on to the handle o' that umbrella.
I'll hold on to the handle.
Trot's face fell.
I'll hold on to the handle, said Button Bright, and she can hold on to me. It doesn't pull hard at all. You've no idea how easy it is to fly that way, after you get used to it.
But Trot ain't used to it, objected the sailor. If she happened to lose her hold and let go, it's good-bye, Trot. I don't like to risk it, for Trot's my chum, and I can't afford to lose her.
Can't you tie us together, then?
Asked the boy.
We'll see, replied Cap'n Bill,
and began to think very deeply. He forgot that he didn't believe the umbrella could fly, and after Button Bright and Trot had both gone to bed, the old sailor went out into the shed and worked a while before he too turned into his bunk. The Sandman wasn't around, and Cap'n Bill lay awake for hours, thinking of the strange tale of the magic umbrella, before he finally sank into slumber. Then he dreamed about it, and waking or dreaming, he found the tale hard to believe. You have to wonder with Cap'n Bill. I mean, they did just. The previous books, they went under the water thanks to mermaid magic and basically went around the world under the sea, met an evil wizard, met a giant sea serpent, and he still is doubtful of a magic umbrella. Let's get some more water in me. Oh my goodness, my throat. Like I said, it's very hard to do all these voices. It's always good to hydrate when you're reading. Excuse me. Ah. Chapter 3: A Wonderful Experience. They had early breakfasts at Trot's house because they all went to bed early, and it is possible to sleep only a certain number of hours if one is healthy in body and mind. And right after breakfast, Trot claimed Button Bright's promise to take her to town with the magic umbrella. Kintron me to reminds me to fill my water bottles. Yes, it's always a good idea, especially when you are a reader. It's very, very, very important that you stay hydrated. You want to keep good care of your throat.
Any time suits me,
Said the boy. He had taken his precious umbrella to bed with him, and even carried it to the breakfast table, where he stood it between his knees as he ate. So now he held it close to him, and said he was ready to fly at a moment's notice. This confidence impressed Cap'n Bill, who said with a sigh,
Well, if you must go, Trot, I'm provided a machine that'll carry you both comfortable. I'm somewhat of an inventor myself, though there ain't any magic about me.
Then he brought from the shed the contrivance he had made the night before. It was merely a swing seat. He had taken a wide board that was just long enough for both the boy and the girl to sit upon, and had bored 6 holes in it, 2 holes at each end, and 2 in the middle. Through these holes he had run stout ropes, in such a way that the seat could not turn, and the occupants could hold on to the ropes on either side of them. The ropes were all knotted together at the top, where there was a loop that could be hooked upon the crooked handle of the umbrella. Button Bright and Trot both thought Cap'n Bill's invention very clever. The sailor placed the board upon the ground while they sat in their places, Button Bright at the right of Trot, and then the and then the boy hooked the rope loop to the handle of the umbrella, which he spread wide open.
I want to go to the town over yonder,
he said, pointing with his finger to the roofs of the houses that showed around the bend in the cliff. At once, the umbrella rose into the air, slowly at first, but quickly gathering speed. Trot and Button Bright held fast to the ropes, and were carried along very easily and comfortably. It seemed scarcely a minute before they were in the town, and when the umbrella set them down just in front of the store, for it seemed to know just where they wanted to go, a wondering crowd gathered around them. Kintron, town over yonder. Phraseology. Yes, that is true. Phraseology indeed. Round them, Trot ran in and changed the yarn, while Button Bright stayed outside and stared at the people who stared at him. They asked questions too, wanting to know what sort of an aeroplane this was, and where his power was stored, and lots of other things. But the boy answered not a word. When the little girl came back and took her seat, Button Bright said,
I want to go to Trot's house.
The simple villagers could not understand how the umbrella suddenly lifted the 2 children into the air and carried them away. They had read of airships, but here was something wholly beyond their comprehension. Cap'n Bill had stood in front of the house, watching with a feeling akin to bewilderment the flight of the magic umbrella. He could follow its course until it descended in the village, and he was so amazed and absorbed that his pipe went out. He had not moved from his position when the umbrella started back. The sailor's big blue eyes watched it draw near and settle down with its passengers upon just the spot it had started from. Trot was joyous and greatly excited.
Oh, Cap'n Bill, it's glorious,
she cried in ecstasy.
It beats riding in a boat or in anything else. You feel so light and free and glad. I'm sorry the trip didn't last longer, though. Only trouble is, you go too fast.
Kintron. Have to be careful with magic. I mean diagonally and Dagon Alley. No! No, 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 no. Was that a pun? If that was a pun, no, 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 no. Button Bright was smiling contentedly. He had proved to both Trot and Cap Bill that he had told the truth about the magic umbrella, however marvelous his tale had seemed to them.
I'll take you on another trip if you like, said he. I'm in no hurry to go home, and if you will let me stay with you another day, we can make 2 or 3 little trips with the family luck. You must stay a whole week, said Trot decidedly, and you must take Cap'n Bill for an air ride, too.
Oh, Trot, I don't know as I'd like it, protested Cap'n Bill nervously.
Yes, you would. You're sure to like it.
I guess I'm too heavy, he said.
I'm sure the umbrella could carry 20 people if they could be fastened to the handle,
said Button Bright. Solid land's pretty good to hold on to, decided Cap'n Bill. A rope might break, you know.
Oh, Cap'n Bill, you're scared stiff,
said Trot. I ain't, mates. I ain't that at all. But I don't see that human critters has any call to fly in the air anyhow. The air was made for the birds and musketeers
and flying fishes,
added Trot.
I know all that, Cap'n, but why wasn't it made for humans too, if they could manage to fly in it? We breathe the air, and we breathe it high up, just as well as down on the earth.
Seeing as you like it so much, Trot, it would be cruel for me to go with Button Bright and leave you at home, said the sailor. When I were younger, which is ancient history, and before I had a wooden leg, I could climb a ship's rope with the best of 'em, and walk out on a boom, or stand atop a mast. So you know very well I ain't scared about the high upness.
Why can't we all go together?
Asked the boy.
Make another seat, Cap'n, and swing it right under ours. Then we can all 3 ride anywhere we want to go. Yes, do! exclaimed Trot. And see here, Cap'n, let's take a day off and have a picnic. Mother is a little cross today, and she wants to finish knitting your new stocking. So I guess she'll be glad to get rid of us.
Where'll we go? He asked, shifting on his wooden leg uneasily.
Anywhere. I don't care. There'll be the air ride there. There'll be the air ride there. Me,
Yeah, it's hard to read this one with the dialect. No, give me 1 second.
There'll be the air ride there and the air ride back, and that's the main thing with me. If you say you'll go, Cap'n, I'll run in and pack a basket of lunch.
How we carry it?
Swing it to the bottom of your seat.
The old sailor stood silent a moment. He really longed to take the air ride, but was fearful of danger. However, Trot had gone safely to town and back, and had greatly enjoyed the experience. All right, he said. I'll risk it, mate. Although I guess I'm an old fool for tempting fate by trying to make a bird o' myself. Get the lunch, Trot, if your mother'll let you have it, and I'll rig up the seat. He went into the shed, and Trot went to her mother. Mrs. Griffith, busy with her work, knew nothing of what was going on in regard to the flight of the magic umbrella. She never objected when Trot wanted to go away with Cap'n Bill for a day's picnicking. She knew the child was perfectly safe with the old sailor, who cared for Trot even better than her mother would have done.
If she had asked any questions today and had found out they had intended to fly in the air, she might have seriously objected. But Mrs. Griffith had her mind on other things, and merely told the girl to take what she wanted from the cupboard, and not bother her. So Trot, remembering that Button Bright would be with them, and had proved himself to be a hearty eater, loaded the basket with all the good things she could find. By the time she came out, lugging the basket with both hands, Cap'n Bill appeared with the new seat he had made for his own use, which he attached by means of ropes to the double seat of the boy and girl.
Now then, where will we go?
Asked Trot. Anywhere suits me. They had walked to the high bluff overlooking the sea, where a giant acacia tree stood on the very edge. A seat had been built around the trunk of the tree, for this was a favorite spot for Trot and Cap'n Bill to sit and talk and watch the fleet of fishing boats sail to and from the village. When they came to this tree, Trot was still trying to think of the most pleasant place to picnic. She and Cap'n Bill had been every place that was desirable and nearby, but today they didn't want a nearby spot. They must decide upon one far enough away to afford them a fine trip through the air. Looking far out over the Pacific, the girl's eyes fell upon a dim island lying on the horizon line, just where the sky and water seemed to meet, and the sight gave her an idea.
Oh, Cap'n Bill,
she exclaimed.
let's go to that island for our picnic. We've never been there yet, you know.
The sailor shook his head. It's a good many miles away, Trot, he said, farther than it looks to be from here.
That won't matter, remarked Button Bright. The umbrella will carry us there in no time. Let's go, repeated Trot. We'll never have another such chance, Cap'n. It's too far to sail or row, and I've always wanted to visit that island.
What's the name of it? Inquired Button Bright, while the sailor hesitated how to decide.
Oh, it's got an awful hard name to pronounce.
Pronounce? Replied the girl.
So Cap'n Bill and I just call it Sky Island, 'cause it looks as if it were us half in the sky. We've been told it's a very pretty island, and a few people live there, and keep cows and goats and fish for a living. There are woods and pastures and springs of clear water, and I'm sure we would find it a fine place for a picnic.
If anything happened on the way, observed Cap'n Bill, we'd drop in the water.
Of course, said Trot, and if anything happened while we were flying over the land, we'd drop there. But nothing's going to happen, Cap'n. Didn't Button Bright come safe all the way from Philadelphia? I think I'd like to go to Sky Island, said the boy. I've always flown over the land so far, and it'll be something new to fly over the ocean.
All right, I'm agreeable, decided Cap'n Bill. But afore we starts on such a long journey, suppose we make a little trial trip along the coast. I want to see if the new seat fits me, and make certain the umbrella will carry all three of us.
Very well, said Button Bright. Where shall we go?
Let's go as far as Smuggler's Cove, and then turn round and come back. If all's right and shipshape, then we can start for the island. They put the broad double seat on the ground, and then the boy and girl sat in their places, and Button Bright spread open the magic umbrella. Cap'n Bill sat in his seat just in front of them, all being upon the ground.
Don't we look funny? Said Trot with a chuckle of glee. But hold fast the ropes, Cap'n, and take care of your wooden leg.
Button Bright addressed the umbrella, speaking to it very respectfully, for it was a thing to inspire awe.
I want to go as far as Smuggler's Cove, and then turn round in the air and come back here, he said.
At once the umbrella rose into the air, lifting after it,
First the seat in which the children sat, and then Captain Bill's seat. "Don't kick your heels, Trot!" cried the sailor in a voice that proved he was excited by his novel experience. "You might bump me in the nose."
"All right," she called back. "I'll be careful."
It was really a wonderfully exhilarating ride, and Cap'n Bill wasn't long making up his mind he liked the sensation. When about 50 feet above the ground, when about 50 feet above the ground, the umbrella began moving along the coast towards Smuggler's Cove, which it soon reached. Looking downward, Cap'n Bill suddenly exclaimed, "Why, there's a boat cast loose, and it's gonna smash on the rocks. Hold on a minute, Button Bright, till we can land and drag it ashore."
"Hold on a minute, umbrella,"
cried the boy. But the magic umbrella kept steadily upon its way. It made a circle over the cove, and then started straight back the way it had come.
"It's no use, sir," said Button Bright to the sailor. "If I once tell it to go to a certain place, the umbrella will go there, and nowhere else. I found that out before this. You simply can't stop it."
"Won't let you change your mind, eh?" replied Cap'n Bill. "Well, that has its advantages and its disadvantages. If your old umbrella hadn't been so obstinate, we could have saved that boat."
"Never mind," said Trot briskly. "Here we are safe back again. Wasn't it just the fascinatingest ride you ever took, Cap'n?"
"It's pretty good fun," admitted Cap'n Bill. "Beats them aeroplanes and things a holler, 'cause it don't need any regulating."
"If we're going to that island, we may as well start right away," said Button Bright, when they had safely landed.
"All right, I'll tie on the lunch basket," answered the sailor. He fastened it so that it would swing underneath his own seat, and then they all took their places again.
"Ready?"
asked the boy. "Let her go, my lad."
"I want to go to Sky Island,"
said Button Bright to the umbrella, using the name Trot had given him. The umbrella started promptly. It rose higher than before, carrying the three voyagers with it, and then started straight away over the ocean. I think we have enough time for another chapter. I will be right back, so give me one moment. Where's that? Intermission time.
All right, thank you. I hope you had a little bit of fun there. All right, I think we have enough time for one more chapter. Chapter 4. The Island in the Sky. They clung tightly to the ropes, but the breeze was with them, so after a few moments, when they became accustomed to the motion, they began to enjoy the ride immensely. Larger and larger grew the island, and although they were heading directly toward it, the umbrella seemed to rise higher and higher into the air the further it traveled. They had not journeyed 10 minutes before they came directly over the island, and looking down they could see the forests and meadows far below them. But the umbrella kept up its rapid flight.
Hold on there, cried Cap'n Bill. If it ain't careful, the old thing will pass away by the island.
I'm sure it has passed it already, exclaimed Trot. What's wrong, Button Bright? Why won't it stop? Why don't we stop?
Button Bright seemed astonished too.
Perhaps I didn't say it right,
he replied, after a moment's thought. Then, looking up at the umbrella, he repeated distinctly,
I said I wanted to go to Sky Island. Sky Island! Don't you understand?
The umbrella swept steadily along, getting farther and farther out to sea, and rising higher and higher towards the clouds.
Mackerel and herrings! roared Cap'n Bill, now really frightened. Ain't there any blamed way at all to stop her?
None that I know of, said Button Bright anxiously. Perhaps, said Trot, after a pause during which she tried hard to think, perhaps Sky Island isn't the name of that island at all.
Why, we know very well it ain't the name of it, yelled Cap'n Bill from below. We just call it that 'cause its right name is too hard to say.
That's the whole trouble, then, returned Button Bright. Somewhere in the world there's a real Sky Island, and having told the magic umbrella to take us there, it's going to do so.
Well, I declare, gasped the sailor man. Can't we land anywhere else?
Not unless you care to tumble off, said the boy. I've told the umbrella to take us to Sky Island, so that's the exact place we're bound for. I'm sorry. It was your fault for giving me the wrong name.
Dr. Zadium, oh, that is great. Yeah, you have to look at the fine print. That's magic for you. You have to be very specific. They glided along in silence for a while. The island was now far behind them, growing small in the distance.
Where do you suppose the real Sky Island can be? Asked Trot presently. We can't tell anything about it until we get there, Button Bright answered. Seems to me I've heard of the island of Skye, but that's over in Great Britain, somewhere the other side of the world. It isn't Sky Island, anyhow.
This miserable old umbrella's too particular, growled Cap'n Bill. It won't let you change your mind, and it goes exactly where you say.
If it didn't, said Trot, we'd never know where we were going.
We don't know now, said the sailor. One thing's certain, folks. We're getting a long way from home.
And see how the clouds are rolling just above us, remarked the boy, who was almost as uneasy as Cap'n Bill. We're in the sky, all right, said the girl. If there could be an island up there among the clouds, I think it was there we're going. Couldn't there be one? Asked Button Bright. Why couldn't there be an island in the sky that would be named Sky Island?
I wonder if this Sky Island has like a giant gold bell or something. We'll find out.
Of course not, declared Cap'n Bill. There wouldn't be anything to hold it up, you know.
What's holding us up? Asked Trot.
Magic, I guess.
Then magic might hold an island in the sky. Whee! What a black cloud!
It grew suddenly dark, for they were rushing through a thick cloud that rolled around them in billows. Trot felt little drops of moisture striking her face and knew her clothing was getting damp and soggy. Dr. Sadium, I got that reference. Good, good. I'm glad you got that reference.
It's a rain cloud, she said to Button Bright, and it seems like an awfully big one, 'cause it takes so long for us to pass through it.
The umbrella never hesitated a moment. It made a path through the length of the heavy black cloud at last, and carried its passengers into a misty, billowy bank of white, which seemed as soft and fleecy as a lady's veil. When this broke away, they caught sight of a majestic rainbow spanning the heavens, its gorgeous colors glinting brightly in the sun, its arch perfect and unbroken from end to end. But it was only a glimpse they had, for quickly they dove into another bank of clouds, and the rainbow disappeared. Here the clouds were not black, nor heavy, but they assumed queer shapes. Some were like huge ships, some like forest trees, and others piled themselves into semblances of turreted castles and wonderful palaces. The shapes shifted here and there continually, and the voyagers began to be bewildered by the phantoms.
Seems to me we're going down,
called Trot. Down where? asked Cap'n Bill.
Who knows, said Button Bright, but we're dropping all right.
It was a gradual descent. The magic umbrella maintained a uniform spread. A uniform speed, swift and unfaltering. But its path through the heavens was now in the shape of an arch, as a flying arrow falls. The queer shapes of the clouds continued for some time, and once or twice Trot was a little frightened when a monstrous airy dragon passed beside them, or a huge giant stood upon a peak of cloud and stared savagely at the intruders into his domain. But none of these fanciful, vapory creatures seemed inclined to molest them or to interfere with their flight, and after a while the umbrella dipped below this queer cloudland and entered a clear space where the sky was of an exquisite blue color.
"Oh, look!" called Cap'n Bill. "There's land below us."
The boy and girl leaned over and tried to see this land, but Cap'n Bill was also leaning over, and his big body hid all that was just underneath them.
Is it an island?
asked Trot anxiously.
"Seems so," the old sailor replied. "The blue is around all one side of it, and a pink sunshine around the other side. There's a big cloud just over the middle, but I guess it's surely an island, Trot, and being as it's in the sky, it's likely to be Sky Island."
"Then we shall land there," said the boy confidently. "I knew the umbrella couldn't make a mistake."
Presently Cap'n Bill spoke again.
"We're going down on the blue part o' the island," he said. "I can see trees and ponds and houses. Hold tight, Trot. Hold tight, Button Bright. I'm afeard we're a-going to bump something."
They were certainly dropping very quickly now, and the rush of air made their eyes fill with water, so that they could not see much below them. Suddenly the basket that was dangling below Cap'n Bill's seat struck something with a loud thud, and this was followed by a yell of anger. Cap'n Bill sat flat upon the ground, landing with a force that jarred the sailor-man and made his teeth click together, while down upon him came the seat that Trot and Button Bright occupied, so that for a moment they were all tangled up.
"Get off from me! Get off from my feet, I say!" cried an excited voice. "What in the sky do you mean by sitting on my feet? Get off! Get off at once!"
And I think we'll stop there for now. I don't think we have enough time for. Well, you know what? What do you say, my dear scholars? Should we risk doing another chapter? I mean, we have a few minutes left in my energy. What say you? Julian20 says sure. Oh, that's. Are you sure, Julian20? You sound so downcast for some reason. What say the rest of you, my dear scholars? Shall we do one more chapter? Get a little bit of water then. I think I have enough energy in me for one more chapter. Chapter 5: The Boolaroo of the Blues. Captain Bill suspected that these remarks were addressed to him, but he couldn't move just then because the seat was across him, and a boy and girl were sprawling on the seat. As the magic umbrella was now as motionless as any ordinary umbrella might be, Button Bright first released the catch and closed it up, after which he unhooked the crooked handle from the rope and rose to his feet. Trot had managed by this time to stand up, and she pulled the board off from Cap'n Bill. All this time the shrill, excited voice was loudly complaining because the sailor was on his feet, and Trot looked to see who was making the protest, while Cap'n Bill rolled over and got on his hands and knees so he could pull his meat leg and his wooden leg into an upright position, which wasn't a very easy thing to do. Button Bright and Trot were staring with all their might at the queerest person they had ever seen. They decided it must be a man, because he had 2 long legs, a body as round as a ball, a neck like an ostrich, and a comical little head set on the top of it. But the most curious thing about him was his skin, which was a lovely sky blue tint. His eyes were also sky blue, and his hair, which was trained straight up and ended in a curl at the top of his head, was likewise blue in color and matched his skin and his eyes. He wore tight-fitting clothes made of sky blue silk, with a broad blue ruffle around his long neck, and on his breast glittered a magnificent jewel in the form of a star, set with splendid blue stones. If the blue man astonished the travelers, they were no less surprised by his surroundings, for look where they might, everything they beheld was of the same blue color as the sky above. They seemed to have landed in a large garden, surrounded by a high wall of blue stone. The trees were all blue, the grass was blue, the flowers were blue, and even the pebbles in the paths were blue. There were many handsomely carved benches and seats of blue wood scattered about the garden, and near them stood a fountain made of blue marble, which shot lovely sprays of blue water into the blue air. But the angry inhabitant of this blue place would not permit them to look around them in peace, for as soon as Cap'n Bill rolled off his toes, he began dancing around in an excited way and saying very disrespectful things of his visitors.
"You brutes! You apes! You miserable white-skinned creatures! How dare you come into my garden and knock me on the head with that awful basket, and then fall on my toes and cause me pain and suffering? How dare you, I say? Don't you know you will be punished for your impudence? Don't you know the Boolaroo of the Blues will have revenge? I can have you patched for this insult, and I will, just as sure as I'm the royal Boolaroo of Sky Island."
"Oh, is this Sky Island, then?"
asked Trot. "Of course it's Sky Island. What else could it be? And I'm its ruler, its king, its sole royal potentate and dictator. Behold in the personages you have injured the mighty Quitely Rightly Boolaroo of the Blues."
Here he strutted around in a very pompous manner, and wagged his little head contemptuously at them.
Glad to meet you, sir, said Cap'n Bill. I allus had a liking for kings, being as they're somewhat unusual. Please excuse me for a sitting on your royal toes, not knowing as your toes were there. I won't excuse you, roared the Boolooroo.
This voice is so weird to do. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness.
But I'll punish you. You may depend on that.
Seems to me, said Trot, you're acting rather impolite to strangers. If anyone comes to our country to visit us, we always treat 'em decent.
Your country?
Exclaimed the Boolooroo, looking at them more carefully and seeming interested in their appearance.
Where in the sky did you come from, then? And where's your country located?
We live on the earth. When we're at home, replied the girl.
The Earth? Nonsense! I've heard of the Earth, my child, but it isn't inhabited. No one can live there, because it's just a round, cold, barren ball of mud and water, declared the Blueskin.
Oh, you're wrong about that, said Button-Bright.
You surely are, added Cap'n Bill.
Why, we live there ourselves,
cried Trot. I don't believe it. I believe you are living in Sky Island, where you have no right to be, with your horrid white skins, and you've greatly intruded into the private garden of the palace of the greatly stately Elately Boolooroo, which is a criminal offense, and you've bumped my head with your basket, and smashed my toes with your boards and bodies, which is a crime unparalleled in all the history of Sky Island. Aren't you sorry for yourself?
I'm sorry for you, replied Trot, 'cause you don't seem to know the proper way to treat visitors. But we won't stay long. We'll go home pretty soon.
Not until you've been punished, exclaimed the Boolooroo sternly. You are my prisoners. Beg pardon, your majesty, said Cap'n Bill, but you're taking a good deal for granted. We've tried to be friendly and peaceable, and we've apologized for hurting you. But if that don't satisfy you, you'll have to make the most of it. You may be the Boolooroo of the Blues, but you ain't even a tin whistle to us, and you can't scare us for half a minute. I'm an old man myself, but if you don't behave, I'll spank you like I would a baby, and it won't be any trouble at all to do it, thank ye. Wow, Cap'n Bill is violent. Where am I? As a matter of fact, we've captured your whole bloomin' Blue Island, but we don't like the place very much, and I guess we'll give it back. It gives us the blues, don't it, Trot? So as soon as we eat a bite o' lunch from our basket, we'll sail away again. Sail away? How? asked the Boolooroo. With the magic umbrella, said Cap'n Bill, pointing to the umbrella that Button-Bright was holding underneath his arm.
Oh ho! I see, said the Boolooroo, nodding his funny head.
Go ahead, then, and eat your lunch.
He retreated a little way to a marble seat beside the fountain, but watched the strangers carefully. Cap'n Bill, feeling sure he had won the argument, whispered to the boy and girl that they must eat and get away as soon as possible, as this might prove a dangerous country for them to remain in. Trot longed to see more of the strange Blue Island, and especially wanted to explore the magnificent blue palace that adjoined the garden, and which had 600 tall towers and turrets. But she felt that her old friend was wise in advising them to get away quickly. So she opened the basket, and they all three sat in a row on a stone bench, and began to eat sandwiches, and cake, and pickles, and cheese, and all the good things that were packed in the lunch basket. And now I'm hungry. Thank you, book. They were hungry from the long ride,
And while they ate, they kept their eyes busily employed in examining all the queer things around them. The Boolooroo seemed quite the queerest of anything, and Trot noticed that when he pulled the long curl that stuck up from the top of his head, a bell tinkled somewhere in the palace. He next pulled at the bottom of his right ear, and another faraway bell tinkled. Then he touched the end of his nose, and still another bell was faintly heard. The Boolooroo said not a word while he was ringing the bells, and Trot wondered if that was the way he amused himself. But now the frown died away from his face and was replaced by a look of satisfaction. "Have you nearly finished?" he inquired. "No," said Trot. "We've got to eat our apples yet." "Apples? Apples? What are apples?" he asked. Trot took some from the basket. "Have one," she said. "They're awful good." The Boolooroo advanced a step and took the apple, which he regarded with much curiosity. "Guess they don't grow anywhere but on the earth," remarked Cap'n Bill. "Are they good to eat?" asked the Boolooroo. "Try and see," answered Trot, biting into an apple herself. The Blueskin sat down on the end of their bench, next to Button-Bright, and began to eat his apple. He seemed to like it, for he finished it in a hurry. And when it was gone, he picked up the magic umbrella. "Let that alone," said Button-Bright, making a grab for it, but the Boolooroo jerked it away in an instant, and standing up he held the umbrella behind him and laughed aloud. "Now then," said he, "you can't get away while I'm willing to let you go, until I'm willing to let you go. You're my prisoners." "I guess not," returned Cap'n Bill, reaching out one of his long arms. Reaching out one of his long arms, the sailor man suddenly grasped the Boolooroo around his long, thin neck and shook him until his whole body fluttered like a flag. "Drop that umbrel! Drop it!" yelled Cap'n Bill, and the Boolooroo quickly obeyed. The magic umbrella fell to the ground, and Button-Bright promptly seized it. Then the sailor let go his hold, and the king staggered to a seat, choking and coughing to get his breath back. "I told you to let things alone," growled Cap'n Bill. "If you don't behave, your majesty, this blue island have to get another Boolooroo." "Why?" asked the Blueskin. "Because I'll probably spoil you for a king, and maybe for anything else. Anyhow, you'll get badly damaged if you try to interfere with us, and that's a fact." "Don't kill him, Cap'n Bill," said Trot cheerfully. Wow, that line combination. Kinda interesting. Kinda scary, actually.
"Kill him? Kill me? Why, he couldn't do that," observed the king, who was trying to rearrange the ruff around his neck. "Nothing can kill me."
"Why not?" asked Cap'n Bill.
"Because I haven't lived my 600 years yet. Perhaps you don't know that every Blueskin in Sky Island lives exactly 600 years from the time he is born."
"No, I didn't know that."
"It's a fact," said the king. "Nothing can kill us until we've lived to the last day of our appointed lives. When the final minute is up, we die, but we're obliged to live all of the 600 years, whether we want to or not. So you needn't think of trying to kill anybody on Sky Island. It can't be done."
"Never mind," said Cap'n Bill. "I'm no murderer, thank goodness, and I wouldn't kill you if I could, much as you deserve it."
"But isn't 600 years an awful long time to live?" questioned Trot. "It seems like it at first," replied the king, "but I notice that whenever any of my subjects get near the end of their 600, they grow nervous and say the life is altogether too short." "How long have you lived?"
asked Button Bright. The king coughed again and turned a bit bluer. That is considered an impertinent question in Sky Island, he answered. But I will say that every Boolooroo is elected to reign in 300 years, and I've reigned not quite 200. Are your kings elected then? Asked Cap'n Bill. Yes, of course. This is a republic, you know. The people elect all their officers, from the king down. Every man and every woman is a voter. The Boolooroo tells them whom to vote for, and if they don't obey, they are severely punished. It's a fine system of government, and the only thing I object to is electing the Boolooroo for only 300 years. It ought to be for life. My successor has already been elected, but he can't reign for 100 years to come.
I think 300 years is pretty long enough, said Trot. It gives someone else a chance to rule, and I wouldn't be surprised if the next king is a better one. Seems to me you're not much of a Boolooroo.
That, replied the king indignantly, is a matter of opinion. I like myself very much, but I can't expect you to like me because you're deformed and ignorant.
I'm not,
cried Trot. Yes, you are. Your legs are too short, and your neck is nothing at all. Your color is most particular, but there isn't a shade of blue about any of you, except the deep blue color of the clothes the old ape that choked me wears. Also, you are ignorant, because you know nothing of Sky Island, which is the center of the universe, and the only place anyone would care to live.
Don't listen to him, Trot, said Button Bright. He's an ignorant himself.
Cap'n Bill packed up the lunch basket. One end of the ropes was still tied to the handle of the basket, and the other end to his swing seat, which lay on the ground before them. Well then, said he, let's go home. We've seen enough of this blue country and its blue Boolooroo, I guess, and it's a long journey back again.
All right,
agreed Trot, jumping up. Button Bright stood on the bench and held up the magic umbrella so he could open it, and the sailor had just attached the ropes when a thin blue line shot out from beneath them, and in a twinkling wound itself around the umbrella. At the same instant another blue cord wound itself around the boy's body, and another caught Trot and Cap'n Bill in their coils, so that all had their arms pinned fast to their sides, and found themselves absolutely helpless. Well then, I think that's a good point to stop. I'll see you in. Let's close our curtain. Get it to close. There we go. And I'll see you all in the chat area to close out the evening. And here we are. Kintron clap. Oh, thank you. Yulian 20, great story so far. Yes, I actually think it's so far kind of an improvement to the Sea Fairies. It's moving a lot faster, and we're getting right to the action right away rather than Sea Fairies, which was more easygoing travel log like. Yulian 20, I like this better. Yeah, I like it better too. I think it's much better, and I like. It's nice to have Trot and Cap Bill again, and Button Bright's pretty interesting. He is very different from his first appearance, where he barely spoke a word. As I said, it's interesting with Button Bright. He comes back in one of the later Oz books, and they reference the events of Sky Island, but they ignore his character development in this story. So he's back to the Button Bright of Road to Oz again. Dr. Zam, yes, this has a lot better pacing. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, oh my goodness, I wore myself out a little bit with that one. But it's a very fun book to read, and I do think it's going to be a good read as we continue it. So next week's schedule. As far as I know, next week's schedule, we are going to be playing on Tuesday. We will be playing, I believe it's called The Backrooms, which will be, not counting Alone in the Dark, our first horror game in this stream channel. I'm kind of excited, a little bit nervous.
We'll see how it works out. I don't know if I'll actually be terrified, but we'll see. We'll have a lot of fun with it. Hopefully, it will work in the on the stream. And then next Thursday, we will be doing another reading of Sky Island. So we look forward to that. We'll read. I don't know if we'll read as many chapters as we did tonight. I usually don't read this many chapters. I only read it this much because we had enough time for it. But next week we will at least read 3 more chapters of the book. So let us see if there's anyone we can raid tonight. Give me a second. Horace, you're being very quiet tonight, Selena. Hmm? Oh, I see. Hmm. Okay, let's see. Oh, I see. Oh, there's someone I haven't raided before. Uh, Let us see. Who can we raid? Who can we raid? A lot of choices tonight. Let's raid. Would you all be okay with raiding a non-VTuber? What do you say? What do you think, my dear scholars? Should I raid a VTuber or a non-VTuber? They're saying sure. That's sure what? That's a very mathematician's answer. Should we rate a? Okay, so let's rate Jewelry Jelly. She's playing a game called Kaliko, which is, I think it's a cat game. So let's give her a raid. Um, but for now, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.